So this is a difficult topic. Um, Anything dealing with pay is very difficult to speak on unless you are, uh, go back in time to when, currencies were first being, really, popularized and we're doing manual labor to generate the thing that was then being used as the currency. It's really, really difficult to even know, or, well, there's that, but then also, I guess, if you are a part of the creation of some sort of item, I think a lot of examples end up just like using the term widget. Like if you make widgets, which are just a placeholder for insert whatever you want. Um, if you make widgets, then you could base pay off of the output of widgets you make, minus whatever the people that like own the machinery or whatever is then wanting to make off of each individual widget or the total amount that you provide. So like, if you say make if each widget is sold for $1 and you make 100 widgets per day, that would mean that your value is $100 per day. Um, like just sort of boiling it down to simple numbers. But the moment you start getting more and more separated from like a widget creation, like the actual production of a specific thing, and move to the digital realm, that number becomes even more difficult to quantify, especially because you then have to start putting in all the other costs and then say, well, what part of the overall uh production am I a part of, or do I contribute to, or what amount of profit loss am I uh providing, especially when you're in the role of like quality control and quality assurance and like all of that stuff. You are a part of the preventative measures of losing money, um especially if, like, if you are implemented into the overall processes far enough up the chain to where you can prevent bugs before they get introduced, then you can help prevent that unnecessary time spent that would have like taken away from other feature development or whatever else is being built. So pay is very difficult to quantify, especially because then there's the element of like, where do you live? Because things cost differently depending on where you live. It sort of doesn't make sense depending on the area that you work. Obviously, having to get materials or food or water or whatever to certain locations can be difficult, which means that everything that then like depends on that costs more money for the amount of money that is then spent to get those items where they need to go. So there's a scarcity to it, which means that they cost more in terms of just the the basic supply demand whatever. um but to really know how much you are worth, uh not in terms of like personal value or anything, obviously that's a much uh that's not really a part of this discussion, but in terms of like professionally, how much are you worth specifically from your job? But then there's also the elements that you could be worth based off of your experience. Like somebody who has been doing the job for 1 year versus 10 years, there's potentially experience that you're wanting to then pay for because they're going to be able to either get the job done potentially better, or maybe they're able to provide their expertise in another way that uh is valuable to the company. So it's interesting to think about how that number is came up. Like, how do you come up with that number? um there's I mean, I haven't gone through like college courses or anything on specifically economics, but just going through the thought process of how would you figure that out? Like figuring out, well, how much is somebody able, how is there already a thing within this space? And if so, how much are they charging for it? How much better or worse or more or less of a product are we able to provide? And then utilize that as like a barometer, or like, no, okay, well, they're charging this much. Our product is better. And so we can charge uh less or more, depending on whether or not you're trying to, undercut your competition, or if you're trying to say we are a premium product and we're not going to lower our price because we know that the thing that we make is of high quality and you will want to pay this money. But the moment you then step into the individuals who are creating that thing, like if you have one developer and you uh like, how much is that one developer worth? Because if you sell a product that monthly you're getting, I don't know, $1 million a month, um how much of that is because of the developer? Well, I mean, they did create the thing if they're like the sole developer doing the implementation. And I mean, that's sort of unrealistic, but uh, just trying to keep it simple. If you have one developer who is doing the development, but then you have 2 to 3 people in sales, and you have your leadership, which might be 1, 2, 3, 4 people, then it's like, well, uh how much of that million is then able to go to the person who did the creation work or created the thing, versus how much then goes to the salespeople? I mean, without the salespeople, how likely is it that that product would have been picked up by anyone? Without the leadership, how likely is it that any of it would have come together in the first place? Uh, so it's like figuring out where that where that pay comes from has been very interesting because it's like one place it pulls in uh we'll say well we'll say like one role doing certain tasks is willing to pay $80,000 a year to a person, but another place is able to pay 100,000 or 120,000 a year. The tasks are the same, but because the companies might have a different level of preference in terms of filling that role or how much they feel that role is like critical to their workflows or what space they're in terms of like are they a fintech company or like do they deal with money or are they uh legal or some other thing. It's like all of these companies have different amounts of money that can be spent, and so the person making 80 or $60,000 might be doing the same thing that a person doing or that somebody getting paid $120,000 is doing. The only difference is that they're just different companies, different priorities, different um, value philosophies, different, you know, any number of different things. So it's interesting to think through the where that number comes from and who was the one who initially said it. That's probably the most interesting thing is who set up that number and how realistic is it still. It's pretty crazy to think that, one company could have said, "Hey, well, this role is going to be $50,000." And then somebody else comes along, or as time goes on and the cost of living goes up, then it's like, oh, well, now that $50,000 is 55,000 or 60,000 or 80,000. It's like just interesting to think about where these numbers come from and how okay or not okay we can be with picking or accepting a role.